So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome you all after the morning session. Now we are starting our session on mineral exploration in India. India has significant potential for mineral exploration as the Indian continental landmass, and its offshore consists of several craters going back to the oldest geological period. India is blessed with ample resource of a number of minerals and has the geographical environment for many others. However, Canada and Australia have been leaders in exploration for a long time, spending nearly 13 to 14% of the total global expenditure spent on exploration. India is somewhere at the bottom of the list. Domestic exploration opportunities and investments have been close to nil, while global investments have remained significantly low. It may be noted that low proportion of global exploration investment coming to India in this area are not due to the low geographical potential or low mineral prospectivity. Reasons are absolutely different and still tangled, requiring some major policy overhaul. It is very important that continuous exploration to locate new mineral deposits with regularity is the key to mineral resources security in a country which is aiming for Atmanirbhar Bharat. With this short introduction to our subject of discussion today, I will now hand over the floor to our expert panel. I would like to invite Dr. Aruna Sharma to open the session. And let me give you a little introduction of Dr. Aruna Sharma. Dr. Aruna Sharma is a 1982 batch Indian Administrative Service officer from Madhya Pradesh cadre. She began her professional journey as a district collector and then held the position of registrar and financial advisor at the National Institute of Rural Development, Ministry of Rural Development. Here she introduced the concept of resource convergence in planning. She was member of 5 high-level committees on deepening digital payments and authored books published internationally. She has served as secretary at Ministry of Steel. Currently, she is co-chair of Foundation of Resource Convergence. I'd like to welcome you, ma'am. Over to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Monica, and the co-panelists who are quite stalwarts in the topic that you have chosen for the discussion today. I will put it this way, that if you look at the expenditure that Australia and Canada has been doing in exploration, it is like they are still spending on exploring more and more and looking at the potential. And if you look at China, it had huge expenditure on exploration, which now they are tapering because they have not only explored within their country, they have even gone across the continents and sort of acquired and secured the raw material what they need, looking futuristic for nearly 50 to 100 years of range. And that is how every country is working. Vis-a-vis, if you look at India, it is really unfortunate that here, even though 2019 amendment is talking about encouraging the private players and the first right of refusal, which is again getting debated. So we are actually sending quite confusing signals for private investors to invest, which is a long-term gamble kind of an investment to come and do the exploration. And it is not only related to core industries like steel, aluminum, and its related raw materials. India imports so much of coal. So we need to go for the coal exploration as much as possible. We also have to go for the other rare earths and other minerals which are very much there. So if you look at the possibility in India, it is huge. If you look at the geographical construct of India, it is huge. But then we are quite happy with what we have explored in the past and going ahead with it. So this has to be a constant endeavor as we go ahead with it. And if you look at the models in other countries, so if you have expert explorer, then they have a right to sell it anybody who is going for mining. So they recover the cost, and this arrangement is absolute business-like so that the profits are getting shared. Now here we have a sweep of policy changes that we say that the only solution to bring in transparency for mining is the auction route, whereas there are multiple routes to bring in the transparency. And that is where we have to be very clear of giving the first right of refusal to anybody who is doing a long-term investment in the exploration. Recently, there was a story in the Economic Times where a person who has invested for a very long time in exploration then got the mines, and now he will be subjected to auction. So definitely the amount of money that person has invested is futuristic, not to be recovered in one tenure of mining, but multiple tenures of mining. And that is what needs to be very crystal clear. So I will put it this way. Our policy has to have absolute clarity when we are going ahead. That is point number one. Point number two, I would like to say here is the clearances which are needed for exploration by the forest departments. Fortunately or unfortunately, good mineral deposits are all thick forest areas or technically labeled as forest areas. So even to go for the equipments to reach there, or to do the drilling, or to find out the possible surveys to be done, it becomes a very long-term process, because this is something one has to allow. It has to be a clear-cut signal. The moment you give an exploration right, nobody is going to mine there. What they are doing is exploring the possibilities by using the different kinds of technologies. So it has to become like a package where they are ready to go and do the investigation and map it and make it available as to what are the results of the survey. So these two, clarity, consistency of the policies is very, very important. And then a consistent expenditure. If we are not spending from the exchequer to Geological Survey of India, then we have to have very, very clarity and a single window, not in red tapeism kind of a way of single window, but in real single window online processes where the private investor feels safe to put its technology, puts its energy, puts its money to go ahead with these kind of a survey. We are a blessed land, again I repeat it, and unfortunately our policies itself is pushing us to import more than utilizing what we are blessed with, or what kind of reduce we have. And here I would like to end by saying that India, which is now struggling with two problems, a low or slipping GDP, and second, generating employment to 65% of young population, it is very, very important that mining sector gets a prominence, because after agriculture and MSCB, this is one sector which provides in remote areas quality, sustainable employment. And it adds to the GDP continuously as mining industry itself, as well as the value addition which happens to the minerals within the country. So definitely it has to go into priority one when we are talking of a recovery phase, when we are talking of a jump back, when we are talking of providing the youth an opportunity within the country, and when we are talking of Atmanirbhar Bharat also. That it is really unfortunate you are sitting on wealth and yet you are importing or unusing this wealth. So I think I'll stop at this stage, and if questions are there, I will react at later. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Aruna. Yes, indeed. I think you have laid a great framework of why we need exploration to get started back again in India. I mean, when I say started back again, I think the last, so if I take non-bulk commodities, if I ignore iron ore, coal, probably manganese, a little bit limestone, then probably the last discovery, major discovery, which was then brought to mining, was sometimes in the late 70s and 80s. So Rampura and those sort of Rampura, and thereafter the bauxite deposits of Eastern Ghats belt. Thereafter we have had exploration by GSI, MESCL, and others, and private sector like Rio Tinto and Australia Resources, BHP, Anglo American, and all. But none of those, since 80s, or whatever we have discovered, none of those have actually been turned into a mine. So that's about 40 years now, if I may say. So, and the reason is two things. One is, of course, getting an economic mineral deposit needs a lot of exploration. It's very risky. So 1 in probably 100 to 1 in 500, depending upon what commodity you are exploring. That's the kind of success rate. A. B is the investments. We haven't had significant investment at all. Obviously, it's corresponding. Both these things are relatable. And then from exploration to development to mining, a normal cycle is 15 to 20 years. So exploration to mining is not an instant return. You can't think of getting a return in 2 to 3 years 3 years time. In terms of what kind of investments we have done vis-a-vis what kind of investments we need, what kind of investments we plan. So we haven't invested in last 30, 40 years. We haven't invested more than 100 crores, even at today's money value, more than 100 to 200 crores a year. I mean, that is to the maximum when even private sectors were exploring. And this is what I'm talking about is on-ground investments. We do pay salaries to the GSI, about 2,500 GSI officials, ADCL officials, and all over the country, DGMs and others. We do pay a significant amount of salaries and other things there. But on-ground exploration into collecting samples, geophysics, and drilling in exploration, not in survey. In exploration is not more than 100 crores, 100 to 200 crores a year. And right now, NMET is collecting about 650 crores a year. Almost all, 90% of that, 50% of whatever is being spent in collecting the survey data, the airborne geophysics data, which is not an exploration, it is a survey data. And 50% of that is being spent in exploration, of which the 90% is being spent in bulk commodities. So iron ore, coal, limestone. Only about 10% is getting, so minuscule percent of 650 crores a year. I think they've got in the kitty about 2,000 crores or something of that order, which we have collected in the last few years. That is being spent on non-bulk commodity exploration. And compare that with what does it take to find a non-bulk deposit. So we have done some calculations. For example, the Bandar diamond is a pretty significant discovery by Rio Tinto. That was discovered after the previous economic mine, which was Majgawa, which is now still being operated. That was discovered 300 years ago, by the way, 300 years ago. So it has taken us 300 years thereafter and 70 years of very, very extensive exploration all over the country. And I've calculated about 1,500 crores at today's money value, 1,500, 2,000 crores to discover a Bandar. Right, a Bandar cluster deposits. And that is almost a standard thing. You have to spend that much to discover a decent, a moderate, and this is not a tier 1 deposit, a moderate economic deposit like Bandar. Same thing goes in copper, same thing goes in gold, etc., to discover moderate. Again, remember how much we are thinking of spending today, about 500, 600 crores, not more than that. If we can spend all of NMET. Compare that with what is being spent worldwide. Now, at Canada, easily 2 billion. Even now, $1 billion to 2 billion. Australia, same numbers. Peru, same numbers. African countries, Southeast Asia, they're spending many. I mean, probably orders of magnitude more than us. So yes, we need to spend a lot in exploration. Certainly, we are falling back. Last 4 years of almost no discoveries, which has taken us worth enough to get into a mine. Is an issue, and then you are thinking about getting your mineral security in the entire 21st century. So we have significant challenges now if you want to have a mineral security in the entire 21st century. So Aruna, that's all to start with. Probably I'll leave it. I'll pass it on to you for others to comment. Yes.
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, Monica.
So,
I'm so sorry.
Monica, in your absence, I requested Biplob to address. Yeah. And now I'm requesting the party to go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you again. So I actually was very interested to take the baton from Biplob, and fortunately the opportunity presented itself. Is the wonderful thing you said is that we have been not been spending enough. Now, supposing we decide to spend enough, are we going to spend public money in doing this exploration? What we are talking about is probably the highest risk end of the business, and that is the probably reason why anonymity funds are not being spent. Uh, our, uh, our decision makers in the government prefer to take the safest decision. If there's a possibility of failure, then our government people would like to not take that decision. Now we are dealing into a situation where, like you said, and Madam Aruna also said, one in 500 or 1 in 100 projects will become a success. So how will the decision making be done when there's 1% probability of success? And so obviously decisions are not being made, and so anonymity funds are sitting like that, not being spent. But even should we spend that money into high risk exploration? That is also a fundamental question. Ideally, we should lower the entry barrier for private companies. Right now, I was interviewing a very senior colleague who is a CEO of a Canadian company and exploring in mostly North America and doing that for the last 50 years. I asked him this particular question is, what would it take for you to look at jurisdictions outside North America to move there? For once he was taken aback. He had never even thought of moving outside North America. He said the entry barriers have to be very low. In Canada, he is now working in Alaska. He says if in Alaska I have to take a claim, a quarter-mile claim, which is approximately 20 acres or something, I think it's a claim size in US, he has to spend $300. And then he has to spend about $150 every year to keep the claim in good standing. The claims typically can be obtained within a week. On 1st of September every year, they can walk into the office and find out, or even online, what are the areas that have been vacated or are now available, and file a claim and get it blocked immediately. Within a week, they file their plan and expenditure plan and pay the money and get the license. They can hold on to it forever. Similar policies have been adopted in other countries, and that has led to a negative connotation. Is that people who are not interested are also holding on to the land for a very long period. Actually, I've worked in 20-25 countries, so I know a lot of jurisdictions quite well. Nicaragua has found a very wonderful solution to it. They double the license fee every year. So either you relinquish the area or you keep paying double more and more. So the prospectors are encouraged to relinquish the area and hold on only to what is actually absolutely necessary. Second point that Biplob was talking about is that we are spending 80 to 90% of the expenditure that we are making into bulk commodities and coal. Overseas, what happens is about 70 to 80% of investment goes into three commodities, that is gold, copper, and uranium. So essentially, we are losing out on 80% of business just by holding on to the bulk commodities or focusing on the bulk commodities. Bulk commodities exploration is relatively much easier than the exploration in gold and copper, and these are also a lot more rewarding. That's the reason why private companies would like to invest in exploring the high-end commodities. And again, not only the entry barriers have to be low, but there are a few pet peeves of the industry that need to be addressed at some point. Is transfer of licenses and change of rules to allow the companies to operate as they normally do for fundraising, financing, share obtaining, selling a share, doing forward selling, creating royalties that they can sell to raise money for exploration. Exploration, as I look at, is not just a process of discovery of mineral. Exploration is a process of finding out why a mine cannot be built at a particular place. Presence of minerals is important, but there are 8 pillars of a mine, and all those 8 pillars need to be sufficiently de-risked for a mine to be there. Other than resources, these are metallurgy, environment, community, market, finance, infrastructure, and jurisdiction. If there's a risk that remains in either of those, there will be no mine. So during the exploration process, it's not only important to spend money in mapping out the resources, but also doing a de-risking in all of these pillars. Now, when we look at Indian system from this perspective, we find that the jurisdictional challenges are insurmountable. And so, my foreign colleagues, I would not be able to recommend to them in good faith to come to India and invest. Before this jurisdictional challenge became insurmountable, we had environmental issues and social issues, but industry was working through it. There were some successes, some failures, but jurisdiction challenge has suddenly made a very big line in front of these smaller challenges. So this is probably the prime question that we need to discuss and settle before we can even think of resumption of exploration activity in India. Another thing, and just small point I wanted to make is when we talk of exploration is not necessarily only a subset of mining industry. Exploration is a stand-alone, independent business that is more profitable than mining. And the jurisdictional perspective needs to realize that and facilitate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit sir. So next, we will move on to Mr. Pankaj Satija. I'll give a little bit of introduction of Mr. Pankaj. He is a mining engineer with more than 26 years of experience. He has been involved in exploration project of Tata Steel in Jharkhand, Odisha, Assam, Gujarat in India, and South Africa, Madagascar, Sierra Leone, and Brazil project in overseas. Mr. Pankaj Satija, it's over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. There is a shloka in Rig, and it says that Samaniva Akuti, Samana Hirdayaniva, Samana Vastu Vomana Yathava Susahasti. And it means, let our aim be one and single. Let our hearts be joined as one. United be our thoughts. At peace with all may we be together in harmony. So this is the philosophy of India, but if you see the ground, especially in the exploration part, we have been excluding others. First, we excluded the private sector in 2015, and we brought NERP. Now it looks very simple at the macro level that, private sector is excluded, but the cascade is very high. I always believe that earth sciences, whether it is geology or it's a mining, it's very close to pharmaceuticals or the medical sector. Medicine also, you take 1,000 trials to come to a drug or vaccine. We are seeing how COVID-19 we are struggling. And similar things happen in exploration when you look for many and then you come out at one which can be made for mine. Similarly, a doctor becomes a very perfect when he goes to treat many patients. And a geologist or a mining engineer also, when he different deposits, his understanding is better. But in this case, we have seen that many of the companies who have a different wing of exploration geologists, who were doing for greenfield exploration in India and abroad, that part was shut. So most of the geologists in India are now limited to quality control geologists, and that's a very sad part of it. Not realizing the impact of it in coming years, we will be limiting our capacity to a very smaller niche. Second part, which Mr. Bhandari and Mr. Biplob also told, and it is also known that the amount of investment in exploration, the data of 1975 to 2018, it says that $198 billion was invested in exploration, and the value was 108. They have a different key performance indicator. They told bank per buck is 0.55. So that means that exploration is very risky and sometimes a value distributive proposition also. So why the government money should spend on that? It should be related to risk and reward, and the private sector should do more and more participation. Thus, the second exclusion, what has happened, it again in the policy and the implementation of Indian government. Now, if you see the NF 4.3, it says that particular attention will be given to the prospecting and exploration of minerals in which the country has a poor resource cum reserve base despite having the geological potential for large resources. Special attention will be given towards exploration of energy critical minerals, fertilizer minerals, precious metals and stones, strategic minerals and other deep seated minerals which are otherwise difficult to access and for which the country is mainly dependent on imports. But if you see the 2017-18 data of NMET annual report, out of 22 projects, one project was on iron, one on 16 on limestone, one on potash, one on phosphorite, one on magnetite, one on copper, one on bauxite. So the NMP says something. NMET is doing something. So again there is exclusion and there is no unity or no harmony. We are not going to meet the result of exploration and we should not be linking the exploration only to the government. Now see the RP permission which from 2015. 2015-16 no RP was given. 16-17 also there is no information of any reconnaissance permit. And it continues and I don't think in the last 5 years there has been any permission given on that. There is a concept of RIA, Regulatory Impact Analysis, and OECD has recently published the report. And it says that the government should do regulatory impact analysis for each law or policy and should ensure that the desired objective which he thought or the government thought has met or not. There should be a periodicity which the government can decide. Now, my point is here, in the last 5 years when we have not been able to give any RP, what's the point of holding this rule? And my submission through this forum is that any are needed. And as Dr. Aruna Sharma and Biplob and Amit have told that it should be seamless from RP to PL to M. And that was also mentioned in the Product Committee. Mr. Tripathi mentioned about linking it to stock finance and the venture capital and all those things. But when the resource is not globally accepted, who will put the money? I mean, we need to have globally accepted standards, which are like in other countries like SAMREC, NI or GeoRC. Dr. Abani Samal has done extensive work on that, so I will leave this and I'm open to listen to. Thank you very much.
We are moving on to Mr. Abani Samal.
Hi, Monica. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that tech issue. I was really waiting to hear from Mr. Charles. I've heard of him a lot. Anyway, yeah, linking to what Biplob said, and then thanks to Biplob, Amit, and Pankaj, actually, starting with Dr. Sharma there, laying out the situation in India. I guess I would like to start with something else, actually. In India, if you look back, last 20 years or so, I think recently there is something is happening. NMET wasn't there, and people are not even thinking about entrepreneurs like Mr. Charles or other people 10 years ago coming to India doing some exploration. There's some things are happening, but it's not happening at the rate, in the way it should happen, or it is happening in other countries. I guess that's what it is. There are some funds available, but we want more funds. There are some activities that's happening in India, but it's not actually enough to get the discovery. On that point, I think Biplob said really the data he provided are very important to how much we're spending and in comparison to other countries. And I believe, Amit, you said how much we are spending from the government funds, and there's definitely, we all know the private investment coming to India, particularly from foreign investors, is very difficult today. I had very similar interactions with other companies, like Amit said, hey, why should we go there, right? if you come to a big convention like that's happening in Johannesburg or in Toronto, you'll see there are lots of people there. They ask the questions about India, but when you ask them to come and invest in India, then the series of questions come which we cannot address, or forget about answering the question. Even we can't even dare to address those questions because we don't know really. At times, that feels like we are in 2020. When the country will be really open for the private investors? That's one issue, but I believe the government machinery and the private entities, like right now, we are all talking about it. That wasn't happening before. Now we're thinking about how to move ahead. Pankaj has done something also it's related to mining industry policy. At least there is some movement. How to bring transparency in the exploration and mining industry. That is actually now happening in India. We are discussing, we are working with the government. By we, I mean the entire industry versus the government entities. Those discussions are happening, but the results have not come yet. Another thing, actually, I don't remember who said, but something else we need to also actually keep our focus on is technology. When we talk about exploration, the first thing we hear from India is drilling. I have had actually various types of discussions with the leads of various agencies or the camps actually working in India. Exploration equal to drilling, which is not true, which is not right actually. Exploration is not just drilling. Like Amit and Biplob and Pankaj, I think Pankaj, you said about the discovery. We haven't had a discovery for a long time, but what we need to do, where we should go, and how to get actually more deposits, other than bulk commodities like coal, iron ore, and limestone. We need to also focus on technology and various techniques. This is all need to happen at the same time. Policy, funding, and technology. These all have to happen at the same time. Now, when we talk about the KPI, if you come to any agency, they will say, well, we did X 100,000, like 600,000 meters of drilling or 800,000 meters of drilling. My question was then what? What did you do out of those drillings? Did you improve the confidence of the investor by drilling, or did you find a new deposit? Question is not, the answer is not always satisfactory. We need to also focus in there. So I would actually end with my comment in here is that yes, there are lots of things to need to happen. We are still lagging behind, but there are few areas where discussions are happening. Government is participating now in the discussions, which are good things. Really, we need to acknowledge that. However, like Mr. Pankaj said, we need to work together to move ahead, so that the proportion of so that the contribution of mining industry to the GDP of India is much higher than what it is today. I'll leave there, and if there's any question, I'll take it afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Abani Samalji. Well, I could not introduce you, but I want everyone to know what you had been doing. Mr. Abani Samal started his professional career as a Bola Chromite mines Odisha in January 1996. He specialized in mineral deposit studies, resource estimation, mine to mill reconciliation, and geostatistics. Previously, he worked for a reputed mining engineering consulting firm in Denver, USA, and later as a principal advisor with Rio Tinto at their then USA regional headquarters. Currently, he is the owner and principal of GeoGlobal LLC. He is providing advisory service to mining companies. Now we would like to move on to our next speaker, Mr. Harsh. Uh, he is from IBM. I'll introduce you, Mr. Harsh. Mr. Harsh is a service distribution and industrial sector partner and executive director for India and South Asia. Prior to taking his role in January 2016, he has been the lead account partner for a leading conglomerate for the Asia Pacific region and GBS Natural Resource Cluster leader for India. He is currently focused on digital reinvention, including Internet of Things, blockchain, and IBM's cognitive and AI solutions in their segment. Mr. Harsh Kumar, over to you. Please unmute your mic. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for this invite, and it's a pleasure to be in this esteemed panel. There have been some very interesting insights, especially relating to strategic policy issues and challenges due to investments and associated risks. But I think I'll try and take a little ahead the conversation which Mr. Abani, my predecessor speaker, shared on this topic of exploration. I'm going to share a case study. Actually, the credit should go to my colleagues in Canada who worked with Gold Corporation. They have jointly worked to deliver a very innovative and a kind of first of its kind technology product, which is built on our platform, which focuses on exploration to improve the predictability for gold mineralization. The solution actually uses artificial intelligence tools and methods to predict the potential for gold mineralization and uses powerful search and query capabilities across a range of exploration data sets. The aim which was actually defined for them by the chief operating officer was to accelerate the exploration target identification combined with significantly improving the hit rates on economic mineralization. Basically, this platform was developed on their data, which is on their Red Lake gold mines in northern Ontario. The compute and the AI platform was obviously provided, which leveraged actually spatial analytics, machine learning, and predictive models, helping explorers locate key information and develop geological extrapolation in a fraction of time and cost of traditional method. Just to give you a figure of my most and baseline, from the baseline work to the other areas, the differences were something like 165 hours were brought down to less than 5 hours. That kind of an improvement was done in the effort which would actually go to deliver before you could come up with a point of view. We are using our obviously compute power for these complex geospatial queries that can harmonize geological data from an entire site onto a single platform. In specific to the Red Lake site, this also provided independent support to drill targets being planned by geologists who are working using traditional methods and proposed new targets, which was subsequently verified. Drilling on some of these targets is ongoing, and with the first target yielding the predicted mineralization at the expected depth. Some of the managers whom our team actually spoke in Red Lake gold mines were very happy to see the improvements. And this was also showcased in our various events, and later on went on to win for Gold Corp a prestigious Ingenious Award in the private sector category for the Information Technology Association of Canada, which is ITAC. The ITAC Award for Gold Corp recognizes excellence in the use of information and communication technology by organizations to solve problems, improve performance, and introduce new service and grow business. So to go back, what the benefits, these tools, in the second line, this will view data in totally new ways. They have already begun to test the proposed targets from the predictive model through drilling, and they at least believe the tests have been fairly impressive, and they are continuing to expand the whole aspect. So this is an area where there is a lot of improvement, and especially the kind of technology models which can be brought in from an execution perspective, yes, I'm not covering the policy issues which have been covered a lot in detail by the other esteemed speakers. But from an execution, when you start doing it and you want to scale up your operations and you want to bring down the cost, then these platforms and data platforms really do help a lot. Thank you. Monica, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harsh. We can start the Q&A. So we have received a lot of questions. So I'll begin with the question and answer, ma'am. Ma'am, first question we have received from Mr. N.D. Rao. He was earlier presenting BRPL. Right now he's presenting Odisha Metallics. So his question is, mineral exploration is still being considered as expenditure, not as investment, either by government or by entrepreneurs. How to change it? Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mic is on, no?
Yeah.
If you look at it as an investment, the investment by definition means there is going to be return on what you put in, right? And so therefore the return policies has to be very clear that somebody who puts in the money for exploration, which is not only big money but also spread over a longer time, by the time it starts getting the returns. So there has to be a clear-cut formulation. How does that returns happen? So in the sense, the moment, because in this there is a success rate, there is a failure rate. So when you put in the money for exploration, you may find the mineral or you may not find the mineral. And the moment the mineral is found, there has to be an arrangement to pay back to the explorer the amount with the interest accrued and whatever profit margin is agreed upon in case, and then sort of put it to the other entrepreneurs who want to go for mining. So this kind of an arrangement is there across the globe. And that is very important, that it will be considered investment when only the returns are assured. Otherwise, it will just remain that, okay, it's a spending mechanism. And therefore, you had a public sector undertaking, which had no pressure of bringing back the money, which has been doing the exploration till date. The private sectors have been on and off in the entire scenario. Right?
We have another question from Mr. Rudra Bharatan Mishra. He's asking, is auction policy successful in this scenario of mineral exploration in India? If not, then what is the best practice rest of the world is doing for granting the mineral concession? Anyone can answer. Is auction policy successful in this scenario of mineral exploration in India?
If you permit, I'll take up that.
Yeah, you can take it up.
I have probably worked in 20 or 25 jurisdictions so far, and nowhere in the world is auction policy successfully implemented. People have tried it. Egypt has tried it once. There are other countries that have tried it and failed. Everywhere it has failed. The only policy that is the worldwide is standard that exploration companies are used to working with, and which actually works is the first come first served basis. The way that it can be implemented, or it is possible to implement with the technology that we have, is that we need to have a map of India that maps out the no-go areas that are ecologically sensitive or strategically sensitive areas that we do not want private mining companies to operate in. And we have another map of the concessions that are already granted. These two maps put together, and everything else should be available for an entrepreneur to go and take it themselves. The geological survey has defined the obvious geological potential areas, but this is just a guideline. I have personally made discoveries, and I know that globally a standard is that third or fourth explorer in an area actually makes a discovery, not the first. Why are we presuming that Geological Survey of India has already done everything that is to be done in an area? That is not proper. So in brief, I can answer only is that first come first service concession licensing is the global standard. It has been successful everywhere, and that's what we need to do. Auction is a failure. Thank you.
Anyone else also like to add on in this? Mr. Satija, if you like to say something?
Yeah, so I have told in my talk that, NERP, there has not been any breakthrough. After 2015, no NERP, RP has been given. So we need to understand the option policy also, why it had come and why it is not giving the desired result. Option was not the only option available for the government of India. They wanted to have a method where discretion should not be there and it should be more transparent. So that's why option came in. But it has shifted from transparency to revenue maximization. And if you see today also, when government of India is trying to bring option for coal, many state governments are thinking that this is not the right time and they may not get the desired revenue. So they are trying to delay it. That also shows the intention. And the industry has always been telling that there should be a calendar plan. I should know which mine is coming for option in which month, so the industry can plan it. But it is always again on what time the state government should come with the blocks so that they can get maximum revenue when the sentiments are high. So auction, it has created more damage, and especially for the exploration. I'm quite optimistic that with the NERP, the government of India will take a stand and they will remove this NERP. We can only hope that.
Mr. Abani, you would like to comment on this?
Yeah, I think these two questions are kind of related. The first question, Dr. Sharma responded. Thank you, Dr. Sharma, responding to that question. I guess people need to understand. I guess people do have understanding, but we don't have that ecosystem in India. I hope that in my lifetime I can see that happening actually in India. That is, a system where we have like an environment that we have in Australia or in Canada, where public participation in the exploration really happens. What that means that I can go and spend my buck in Amit's company or Pankaj's company or my company, and I can invest. That is investment. That is, I'm expecting a return. I'll give another example. I live in Salt Lake City, which is about an hour flight from Nevada. If you understand what Nevada is, and for the gold, there's a lot of exploration companies. Not everyone has a discovery, but everyone tries. Why? Where the investment comes? It comes from the public funding. Why people like to spend there or the fund that project or the company? Because they look at the ingredients, the people who are driving it, the geology, and the policies of the government, everything else that is transparently reported and is available to the public. So if I'm satisfied, I'm going to spend my buck on a particular project. What happens if there's a failure? I lose my money. But I was provided all the information needed before I spend the money. That is not there now in India. So we are working towards convincing government to bring a policy where the transparency happens. When that happens, the mentality what is now in India that we spend money in exploration, that will probably go away with time. That's why I said in my lifetime you can see that Bombay becomes like Toronto for investment. I'll be really happy to see that. So that has to come. I'm thinking that the momentum now is there, and hopefully it becomes successful. The second question was about auctioning. I agree with what Amit said and also Pankaj said. I happen to be an advisor to the World Bank, and one North African countries I'm advising on the exploration side, how to get the investment from the other entities other than their own country. What is happening in that country is that the government is working with the other major funding agencies so that they can generate that kind of system to encourage people to come in to their country and invest. They're not going for auctioning. And we had extensive discussion about auctioning and other mechanisms to get let other people come to the country investment. And
Right.
that is going to country and country saying, hey, we have land, come and invest. In India, it's a whole different landscape, isn't it? The auctioning, whether it's a failure or not, data only shows. It's time for us to look at other options and say, hey, what happened before? What happened elsewhere? We need to go there and actually, take a bold step towards encouraging other people to participate in exploration industry in India.
Right. Biplob, sir, you like to add something to this?
Sure. Okay. Let me give my perspective here. Okay. So why did auction come? Why did government chose to give auction after the Supreme Court pronounced Supreme Court judgments, as well as Shah Commission's report, etc., as well as Mr. Vinod Rai's reports on A2G, the coal block allocation. It was very clear that that government wanted to do away with the discretionary allocation practice, and I think Aruna would absolutely say that and agree with it. So here in this situation, what should have been a transparent allocation process? Remember, we were not able to manage FCFS. We had FCFS for between 94 and 2010, when the last mineral blocks were, or not mineral blocks, but last of the allocations happened. There was a huge amount of delay. I mean, on 11th of January 2012, the day before MMDR 2015 came out, there were about 65,000 applications pending with government. 65,000 applications pending with the government, which are waiting for decisions of the government anywhere between, let's say, a year to more than 13, 14 years. That was the kind of wait which these were. So certainly, A, there was a huge amount of discretionary authority with the government. B, or the authorities. B, that somehow we were not able to manage it. And in that ecosystem, that framework auctions came. And what happened? Why did it fail, the auctions? A, instantly, people looked at, the Ministry of Mines looked at, how do we carry out auction? We will carry out auction if we know the resource. Then we know we have a control on it. We will be able to have a floor price, and thereafter we can go for auction. We know that there is no collusion, etc., etc. This is the way we can do auction. So what did they do? They got in another criteria, secondary rule called evidence of mineral content rule. So you need to have a resource where some exploration has already happened, which is equal to which would have already created a geological resource, and only then you can auction it.
Mm-hmm. Biplob sir, we can't hear you. Biplob sir, we can't hear you.
What about?
Yeah.
What are you able to hear me? Okay. In the last 70 years of exploration, whatever is left, they got a few probably bulk commodities, very, very few non-bulk commodities, base metals, etc., and that's it. So there were two things which happened. Bulk commodities, there was absolutely a mad rush to secure resources. Why? Because there were, again, very few postage stamp size blocks which came in, and the government said, look, we had been extremely successful because people were going up to 257% of the market price of the resource, of the price. And on non-bulk commodity, on the other side, nobody was bidding. Very, very few people bidded, and whosoever bid it, most of them are going to fail, right? So here it is. Now, could the auctions, the definition of auction, could that have been changed to bring in now to remove that split which was created by evidence of mineral content rule, and bring in to get allocation, mineral block allocation from greenfield exploration stage onwards, Probably, yes, the economists would have put their brains there. Instead of that, we had accountants who were putting the brains there. We wanted economists to put in their brains there, scientists to put in their brain there, to devise a mechanism for better allocation. They were looking for a paradigm shift because of those kind of things which happened before that, the decision paralysis, etc. before that. To me, I still believe that the definition of auction has to change. Whatever you call it, auction, or it has to be transparent for sure. There are few things which is essential when you want investors to come and invest. There are few things which are essential. Number one, an independence in area selection. If you can't have in an auction, what is happening? You are saying, this is a block, please go ahead and bid for it. Not going to happen, not going to be successful, for sure. You would like that company to have their geologists take a call on area selection. Number two, you should have a seamless continuity from exploration. It could be greenfield exploration right into mining if there is a discovery. Number three is very important, that you will be able to trade that asset. A piece of real estate where somebody explores, creates a value by exploring, somebody should be able to trade that asset. These three are very, very essential pieces if you want an investor. If there are more than one person interested in a single block, you need to have a way to allocate it. And both of them are interested in the single block, and probably they apply for it in, let us say, an hour's difference. Who would you allocate? You need to have a process. You call that an auction. The way you are currently doing it is not going to work, for sure. That is my take.
Thank you so much.
I know it is slightly different.
Thank you so much. So we have a question from Mr. Harsh, from Mr. Om Prakash Somani. He is asking AI, artificial intelligence in exploration is quite interesting. Do you see it to be a common and useful technology in future?
Yes, this case which I shared is actually deployed across a lot of mines of gold corp. It started from the Red Lake mine, and it has proven their results, and that's why they got the award. It will work on almost any area with huge amount of multiple data sets, and geologists and exploration work through multiple data problems. Complex data, which is cutting across both structured and unstructured. Let me not throw jargon here. I'm just saying, if you want things which are in PDF, Excel, and email, along with geological data, and then you want to look at all of them across, how would you want to do it? And you have to look like this across 20 years of data for which is existing, and then try to analyze it using, you can say, block data and other data. Then it becomes very, very complex task. So this is where exactly these things really pick steam, but they require a proper platform because of the size of the data, the complexity of handling, and the mathematical modeling which is needed on it.
Okay.
Yes, I do see that.
Okay, we have a question from Mr. K.V. Subrarana Rao. He is asking, how can we expect MNCs to explore in India with the very bad experience they had during their exploration in India till now? I think we had a great damage to exploration in India, which is not easy to correct. I think he is pointing out on policy matters, ma'am.
Want me to react to this?
Ma'am, you can give a reaction, of course,
Okay.
about policy.
See, you look at it, India is a potential. And anybody who has an interest in mining will always look towards India. There could have been a bad experience, like you mentioned, or the person, Mr. Rao, who is asking the question, is mentioning about it. But then, it is very important to constantly have a feedback and correction in the policy making, because anybody who invests in exploration in India and with conducive policies, definitely it's a good gain for any investor. So with that kind of a scenario and potential which India has, definitely it is an opportunity. So it is not something you write off. It is something you constantly give a feedback so that there is a learning. See, if you look at it, the mining policy has mentioned in 2019 first right of refusal, even though it's getting debated at different levels. So, in the sense, the things are getting flagged of the feedback which has happened, and corrective courses are being attempted. It may not be going holistic, it may not be going in the right way, it may not be as a whole thing coming at one stroke. So these corrections has to be done. But this has to be a constant process, and definitely it will attract the MNCs which are actually sitting on fence and watching at this moment of time. So it is not like a write-off, it is watching because they want a complete clarity about the process. They are looking forward as to consistency in the policies, and they are also looking that there is a credibility and no, because too many decision makers like court coming somewhere or somebody coming somewhere, which disarrays the whole arrangement that has been done. So that is what we are sitting and watching. So these corrections has to be accelerated. There is no doubt about it. It has to be exhibited and put on table in absolutely crystal clear manner. Only then they will jump the fence and again come back into the exploration mode within the country.
I'm sure. So there are many foreign companies who have burned their fingers when they tried to do exploration into India. Maybe we would like to hear from Mr. Abani and Mr. Biplob about their experiences. How to attract foreign investors again in India.
Abani, you are taking, or should I take it first?
Before you take first, then I'll come after you.
Sure. Look, I mean, I think one of the biggest discoveries in India, which happened, in fact, the largest diamond resource found in last 2 decades in the world was in India, which was a completely greenfield exploration. That was I was fortunate to be part of that team. That was done by Rio Tinto. Very, very hopeful. A company which stayed till the end. It left. It disbanded its exploration team only after the new mineral policy was announced. Many other companies left before that. De Beers left before that. Anglo American, etc. They all left much before that. But Rio Tinto was very, very hopeful. Now that was bad. I mean, why that Rio Tinto left after 8 years of waiting for a mining lease. Greenfield exploration, spectacular discovery, 8 years of wait for the mining lease didn't happen, and they had to leave. So what would it take? And Aruna, you have put it absolutely right. I mean, India's geology, India's attractiveness is tremendous. On one side you have the geology, on the other side you have the market. This entire bit is a full spectrum. Entire value chain of the mineral sector is available in India. What we have to do is fill in the blanks, plug in the gaps in between in there. So I mentioned three things. It has to start from exploration. You cannot say explore this area or mine this area. That's not going to happen. That's not going to be attractive for the foreign companies. They will be able to select their areas only then it will happen. Thereafter, of course, the seamlessness, etc., etc. That will make India attractive. But look, there is another very key dimension to it. The exploration pot of financing, of the funding in the world, is a very finite pot. It's not a large pot. And Pankaj did mention about that and how much exploration has happened over decades, basically 190, I think $200 billion or something of that order, and the returns haven't been terribly high. This we have to remember. This is a very, very, very risky investment. What would make us attract the money from Canada into India? Some of the attractive jurisdiction. What would make us attract the money from Australia into India or Peru into India? Quite a few things beyond good geology and a good market. We certainly, and you mentioned stable policy. These are given. It has to be there. What else? We have very good explorability. Certainly, we have better explorability than a 100-meter thick till profile in Canada or a 100-meter thick supergene laterite profile in Australia. Much better than that. We have a very transparent geology on only 2 or 2 to 3 meters of average rigorous thicknesses there. Very, very attractive to an explorer. Good database. India has got spectacular database. I have seen GSI's database. I'm working with GSI's database. It's one of the best in the world in terms of baseline database. Geology and geophysics and geochemistry, NGCM data. Spectacular database. And it is there in the portal. They've kept 28,000 reports in the portal. So very, very good. The only thing digital, it is not all is digital. They can convert it into digital and they can give the geological database. So for a geologist like me, I have enough incentive to come in and look for good areas in India. Fantastic OGP, obvious geological potential area, 2 million square kilometers. Now, what else we need to make it attractive? We certainly need the minerals which are discovered to have an overall fiscal impact. We certainly need incentivization of exploration, so flow-through shares and those sort of things which are there in Canada. What is important and what was missing in the previous regime was a structured permitting process. That is missing in India. You cannot have somebody giving you permission in a year and somebody taking 13 years and sitting over it and not giving you permission, permitting and the discretions which are applied there. A computer should be able to take a decision if I make an application online. You don't need bureaucrats to take a decision if you have the rules and processes.
Absolutely.
And on the other side, you need to have firm regulations. India's permitting process is so long and regulations is absolutely lax. You need that. The international companies want a level playing field there. You have a good market. Certainly, capital market. I think Amit, you mentioned about it. I'm sure Charles, had he been here, he would have mentioned about utilizing India's entrepreneurial ability and investments through capital market. All those things are there. Good human resource. We have good human resource, and what is again missing is a set of good services and suppliers. Which if India's exploration ecosystem is created or mineral ecosystem is created, then we will have all those things. I can go on and on. Community acceptance, that is very, very important. You need companies which believe in getting the community acceptance and not bulldozing the communities through. So many things. Yeah, India could be attractive for sure. All these possibilities.
Abani, sir, you would like to share your comment?
Yeah, I agree with 100% with Biplob also. Yes, all those things are there, but we have to see why it's not working now. I mean, I guess Biplob also touched on some of those, and all the panelists here shared their views. I guess I have if I can summarize all of that, I would go back to Brazil, see what happened there, and some of the African countries. So, what the lessons learned from those countries? I would say, wherever there is success, there is more participation from the private organizations, that is non-government organizations, or reduce the influence of the government agencies, and not completely private. Let the people come and decide where they want to explore. Otherwise, those foreign companies now sitting on the fringe, they may not come to India actually. They may come to other countries. I'm seeing what is happening in the countries where we did not know about the geological potential for the other minerals, or other than the bulk commodities. There are the investors coming from not from Canada, not from Australia. It's coming from Russia. It's coming from Far East and investing in those countries. We are not having those opportunities coming to our country. Why? Policy. It's not there. We've got to work with the government. The government has to be a really open-minded, come and invite all the entrepreneurs in India. We are there. Please talk. Please collaborate. We can bring the investment to foreign investment to India. And the second thing I will with the last point from my side on this topic is get the mentality of the out of investors' mind. The investment is not that expenditure. It is actually somewhere we can get the return. To get there, we have to have the ecosystem where the trading is possible. Thanks to Biplob platform in here, and trading is possible. How you do that? We have a long way to go, but I'm very optimistic that we can do it. Again, the key is we collaborate. Let the entrepreneurs, let the experts in the industry, and talk to the government, and let government also be open-minded. more open-minded than what it has been today. I give a lot of credit to the government agencies today, where they were comparatively other, compared to the previous time, like 10 years back.
Right.
They're now at least working, but we need to go. We have a long way to go. Thank you, Monica.
So we will.
Monica, can I jump in? Monica, can I jump in into this? I have one point to make in addition.
Sure, yeah.
There's another perspective to that. 70% discoveries worldwide in last 10 years have been done by very small companies, not with big companies, not Rio Tinto and not BHP and not Anglo-American. 70% of discoveries worldwide have been done by what we call junior companies, which is 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% companies. This is an industry which is called a junior industry or a mining exploration, mineral exploration industry. This has nothing to do with mining industry, and the laws applicable to the mining industry are not applicable to, should not be applicable to this sector. This sector is in India comparable to the technology startup sector. Mineral exploration is equivalent to a technology startup sector. Governing the mineral exploration sector using the laws designed for mining sector will be something like we design a law for Microsoft and Google and TCS and Infosys, and ask the small player with a startup idea using the small same infrastructure and investment as compared to those. This is highly unfair. So we need to treat this small sector has a special regulatory requirement, and right now it is not recognized by the laws that we have. Thank you.
Right. So we have another question. I'll just take it up. It is from Mr. Shailendra Sinha. He is asking, isn't auction system killing exploration? How many deposits received in last 100 years by geological bodies? And if we continue to believe in auction process, who will be doing new discoveries? Mr. Shailendra Sinha's, who would like to answer his question?
Biplob?
It is about discovery.
Biplob.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Monica, repeat the question. Let me be very, very careful in terms. I don't want to upset anybody. And Sharon is a very dear friend.
He is asking what he meant, that auction system is killing the discoveries of minerals. So he is asking, if we continue to do auction, are we going to kill the discoveries? How will we do the discoveries of new minerals?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're absolutely right. So at this point of time, Sharon is absolutely right. At this point of time, auction system is not even considering, not even there in the purview of exploration. What has happened is the mineral value chain has been split because of the mechanism of auction. The mechanism of auction has got another element to it, which is evidence of mineral content rule. What it means is that you need to have an existing resource, meaning there is a background exploration, etc., which has happened. Only then it will be auctioned. Only then somebody like an independent entity like me or anybody else can be allocated a resource. If there is an existing resource already there, and then at this stage, with this split, that you can only auction an existing resource, who would find a resource? That the owners of. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. That is a very important part which you are saying.
The owners of finding that resource is now with the government entity. It is not that the government entities are doing, frankly, they're not doing bad. GSI has carried out, or in its list, I think I was looking at the list, they are in last 5 years or 6 years, they have listed out 500. They've explored in 500 blocks, so they're exploring in 500 different blocks in India. Now, remember the success ratio, which we have in exploration is 1 in 100 to 1 in 500. How many you are expecting out of this exploration to come and make a mine? Very, very few. And how much time does it take to get to that stage? And so remember the folks who are bidding for it to make it a mine would be not only looking at a very basic resource, we'll be looking at the pre-feasibility level work to be there, pre-feasibility level information to be there. So auction system doesn't even recognize exploration to be done by the private sector. It is to be done by the government entities, and we have got certainly at this point of time GSI, MECL, which is primarily doing most of the NMT stuff, and the state agencies, which are primarily doing limestones and bauxite, and CMPDI, which is doing the coal. Of course, this is out of what we are discussing is out of the mineral auctions is different in the coal sector. So there is absolutely, the auction system doesn't even consider exploration.
So, Mr. Biplob, I like to hear from Mr. Pankaj Satija also, because the Tata Steel has spent a lot of years in exploration. Mr. Satija, what is your take on this?
So, what I am inferring from Mr. Shailendra Sinha's question, one is that the auction and exploration and the interlinkage. See, from 2015, there has not been any RP, which I mentioned earlier. Secondly, 2015 also it was told to all the lessees that you complete your exploration in 5 years' time. And then so that in 2020, when the auction happens, we'll have a ready-made, better proven resource. Now tell me, which lessee is going to do the exploration when he's sure that he's not going to have lease beyond 2020? And why he will do? Even after repeated reminders, many people have not done. This is the reality. The second part, do we have the resource or reserve which is certified? Dr. Biplob and Dr. Abani Samal were saying that we don't have a internationally accepted standards. So what is mentioned in the mining plan, what is filled and what is quoted, there are issues. And let me tell you very frankly, whatever technology we are talking about, at the ground, when people go to the field, they say that, okay, this is thorny bushes, so there will be BHJ, BHQ. And still today, the sal tree is the indication of iron ore. And if a miner wants to mine in manganese, they will say, where is the people tree? So there is a people tree, there will be manganese below it. So what Mr. Sharma is mentioning is exactly on the same point. This auction on the reserves and the 2015 figures, and Dr. Samal also mentioned about the international standards we don't have as it has been in South Africa, Canada and Australia. We need to have the global reporting structure and standards so that someone should verify there should be code of ethics. And someone should be there to tell that whatever figures are quoted it is correct to my knowledge. And as I mentioned earlier also in the beginning that I am quite optimistic that Government of India will remove this NERP and better days will come again.
Monica, there is something else I must add to this, and in a second. And look, what is happening? Another thing which is happening with the auction is again with the EMC rule, is now we are getting blocks which where some or other drilling has to have happened. Now they are cutting it so fine that the blocks are coming at ridiculous level. I mean, so remember, exploration value chain, you have the mineral value chain, you have not only exploration to discovery of mine, but there is something called brownfield exploration. Rampura Agucha discovery sometimes in mid-70s was about 70 million tons of resource till Vedanta took that in through disinvestments in 2003. It remained up to that. Because why? Because there was no exploration thereafter. The early exploration was nothing thereafter. Vedanta started brownfield exploration, and today that is over 250 million tons of resource. It's world's #1 lead zinc resource that we have.
True.
So a brownfield, a scope for brownfield exploration has also been taken away with the process of with the mechanism of auction that we have today.
Mr. Charles, you like to add something? Mr. Charles, you like to add something?
I think I'm
Finally.
first of all, can you hear me?
Finally, we can hear you.
Oh, you can. Well, I'm talking to the converted, so I'm not sure I have much to add. I think it's an amazing talk and amazing people talking. And I think if the spirit of all the speakers can be got through to the Ministry of Mines, I think we're it'd be a winner. And but I do want to make one comment, and it's based on the discovery of Broken Hill in Australia, talking about the zinc discovery in Rajasthan. If you look at Broken Hill's discovery of the lead, silver, zinc deposit, that was made by a very ordinary, semi-educated German, what they called a boundary rider. And, you know, that discovery was, he put a little syndicate together of friends and they listed it on the Melbourne and Sydney stock exchanges. And the result was the largest mining company in the world. Now, I've met people in India like that prospector who know, for instance, more about diamonds than any geologist. So we need to also look very closely at the bottom-up side of this business, not always from the top down. And unfortunately, the big boys at the big end of town push an agenda for their own particular requirements. But if you look at all the major discoveries in Canada, Australia, South Africa, you name it, it all started from the bottom. And it will be the same in India. All the major discoveries will start off from the bottom. And we need to keep in mind that there must be a possibility for an illiterate farmer to peg a small prospecting license or mining license, all of these things. So there's a whole lot of things in the mix that need to be considered. But the problem I've seen after 26 years of being in India, the bureaucracy does not want to leave control. It wants to control everybody. And until that mindset has changed, nothing's going to happen. And Lord Curzon 200 years ago was complaining about the auction system in India. And it's exactly the same system operating today. So unless we can break through this iron grip of bureaucracy, I don't think India can ever move ahead. If we do succeed in doing that, and I predict if we get a proper mining policy, we'll have the largest mining boom the world has ever seen. And it'll be driven by 300 million gold-addicted middle-class Indians on the Bombay Stock Exchange. But we've got to be allowed to create junior companies. We've got to be able to list these companies on the Bombay Stock Exchange. And once all that happens, then I think this place will take off like it'll be the Ashokan Empire all over again. There you are. Janagiri, where we're working, was, I believe, the beginning of the Ashokan story of gold and diamonds, and it built the largest empire on the planet. And we haven't even scratched the surface in India. So everything you're saying is music to my ears, but we need to get this over and over again. We've been saying it to the government, and I think listening to you, it's much stronger than a letter. It's much stronger than anything else. I think this visual, audible thing going to a Minister of Mines is far more interesting. He's prepared to listen. I know Nitya Ayoga listening, and I'm talking to them regularly. But my message is, and I'm running out of time, I'm 79 years old, is that I would love to see this whole thing take off in India. Because I started in the Canadian and Australian mining booms before they started. So in Australia, I was, in fact, the first, just to show you, I don't even see it, that tobacco tin has got emerald crystals in it. And that came to my office in 1963, and that was my first small amateurish mine from that tobacco tin. So we need to allow the little people, and I'm one of the little people, to get up and have a chance. But, today our $40 million investment, we believe, is about to be written off by the government. So, no, we're going to auction all your discoveries. And I have to say, also, I'd like to put on record, our 2 gold discoveries in Karnataka are virgin discoveries, nothing to do with the GSI or the ancients or anybody. And they're the first gold discoveries in 2,000 years in India. Now that's shocking. And Hatti Gold Mines has been trying to steal them off us ever since. So it's been a nightmare trying to operate. But this country, if we can just get them to take a little bit of a change, I think this is going to be the biggest, most important economy in the world to come out of mining and agriculture. And it's how we marry these mines to the 150 million small Indian farms that are also ready to take off. And the miners can help those farmers take off. And in doing so, we win the goodwill of those farmers. And they're the ones at the end of the day will make or break us. Because if we don't have them working with us, we won't have a mining operation. So it's a beautiful story. And I think all of us in this talking now, we're all on the same wavelength. Nothing I'm saying is new. We're all talking the same language. Can we get this message through to the guys who want to stop private enterprise in India? Because that's what they're doing. They just want to stop us from operating. And they have been constantly for 26 years obstructing our exploration in India. Wherever we go, we were obstructed. And we run to the courts, we go to the Supreme Court, but even the Supreme Court, they don't take any notice of it. So if they are going to confiscate our properties, which I think they're considering very strongly in the next few days, then I think, India's doomed in terms of the mining industry because no one will want to invest.
Mr. Charles, I think you have rightly pointed out that bureaucracy is definitely should not be into business and have really affected negatively mining and exploration. And we love your enthusiasm that at this age also you are so positive and so enthusiastic. And it is absolutely on the shoulders of our young, explorers to take this ahead and raise these points to the ministry and government levels. I like to move on to another question, and I would like to have views from our fellow panelists. The question is, developing a system similar to star rating system, as in mines to promote the exploration companies to evaluate themselves with the help of government authority. This question has been asked by Virendra Singh. So he like to ask, what do panelists think on developing a system similar to star rating system?
See, we need to know about the concept of star rating, why the star rating was brought, and then only we can, decide whether it should be in the exploration or not. So star has come when there was a lot of, negative perception of mining in general. We were not doing well in social and the environmental parameters. And government thought that instead of punishing, there should be some incentivizing or some mechanism where the mining companies can come forward with better performance and they will be awarded with stars so that, more and more people will join. There was also a thought that the bigger players, what they are doing the good job, they will also take the smaller companies along with this journey of sustainable development. Many of the things in our framework, the template, it was, reclaiming the land for agriculture or solar use in mine, all those things were added. So slowly the smaller companies can also join towards. There was also a time frame of that you should have at least 4-star rating. If you are having less than 4-star rating in subsequent 2 years, the mine will be suspended. Later on, government relaxed this relaxation. In terms of exploration, as of now, there is nothing to compare. So if more and more companies are given opportunities for exploration, probably we can have a star rating. And then starting for mines, and now it has been introduced the coal. That also should get some maturity. Initially, it was thought that, after giving the star rating, the companies who have more star rated mine, they will get some preference in auction. I don't think it has come. There is also a thought that when you have a star rated mine, when you go for environmental clearance, the ESC committee will, after seeing your star rating, will immediately approve your environmental clearance. We are not seeing such thing in mines also. So in my opinion, let the star rating mature for the mines and coal. Secondly, there should be something more in the platform or a platter for different exploration companies so that we can judge who is 3-star, who is 4-star. As of now, we are very skeptical and we are worried about it to be tended to see what will happen. And then how the NERP will be closed and more exploration companies will come. Probably that time we can think of comparing those exploration leases or those things.
Right. Amit ji, Biplob sir.
Monica, for me, the star rating in an exploration asset is the discovery. How much value you have created by your discovery. Exactly. It is as simple as that. So you don't need a government classification of star. Yes.
I have a chart here in front of me. I'm sorry, Abani, go ahead.
So I was saying the same thing that that there should be something should be there to know which discovery is better or which is more. As of now, nothing is there.
And the market knows that or the investor knows that. Yes, somebody like Charles knows that. Yes,
that's true. I guess Monica, maybe we should have to implement a star rating. Sorry, I'm sitting in the US and I'm talking about India, but knowing about industry in India and being actually deeply connected to the exploration industry in India, I would suggest that there should be a star rating on the bureaucrats, actually.
Yes.
They have the junior explorers. I have no words on how I can admire the people like Charles. How long that they're in India trying to get these things done. Okay, and the second star rating should be on on the discovery actually. How many discoveries that two major agencies and the state agencies have done in someone said about 5 years. In 5 years scale, if the 5 years is the scale for the people to do the exploration, let the star rating on those people. I mean, not those people. I mean those agencies. How many discoveries you have done? If you have done the exploration already, complementing to actually what Biplob said, Biplob went one layer deeper. Why this auctioning is not working is the transparency in the database and the documentation in there. It's not reliable as per the international investors are concerned. They're probably questionable in there in terms of you say it's resource. Is it resource in mind words, in mind terms? If not, then mind buck is not going there. That kind of thing. So there should be probably some sort of reward in terms of a reward system. That's what the star rating is probably. On how much and how good the exploration data is, and did it really create anything anything positive in bringing any investor, be it domestic or international, to further this exploration and make it a mining project.
Right.
Biplob, I don't have the data, but Biplob and Pankaj and maybe Amit, you would have the data. How many exploration projects went into mining in last 20 years? And those explorations
in last 40 years, Abani, in last 40 years, among non-bulk commodities, none which has moved to mining. Not a single one since 80s. Bulk commodities, yes. Non-bulk commodities, no.
So we don't have any stars anywhere.
Non-bulk commodities, and stars is prime example there. India
probably I must say Sindesar could be an exception. Sindesar was probably discovered in 91. That's the only exception as far as I remember, as my memory goes. That's the only exception, Sindesar. Apart from that, none.
Okay. So one of our participants has, sorry.
I said all companies get no stars, but I can say market rewards good, like Abani said, good quality data, good quality work. Good quality discoveries, market rewards in Canadian in Toronto Stock Exchange, 100% returns in a year are very common. I mean, some good companies get 100% returns. I mean, last 2-3 years have been down. So the best result we have had in 2018, Pacton Resources in 2018 has given 700% returns. Amex Exploration has given 450%. So these companies make windfall profit. And there's another one point that should come probably need to be brought on the table is windfall profits need to be accepted for exploration companies. There should not be adversarial taxation on windfall profits, because behind every success there's probably 10, 20 or even 100 failures.
Okay. So one of our participant has requested for a clarification. His name is Rakesh MM. He is asking, in auction rules, they say that every 5 years G1 exploration has to be done by the successful bidder. But the view of speakers is something different. But previously question was like auction kill discovery. Please clarify.
Come back again, Monica.
Rakesh ji is asking that in auction rules, they say that within 5 years, G1 exploration has to be done by the successful bidder. But the view of speaker is something different. Previous question was like auction kill discoveries. So he is asking us to clarify.
The G1 exploration is not for sorry, Amit, go ahead. Yeah.
One very small clarification. Just now, Biplob said when auction started, auction process came through. One of the components was that first come, first served. The government was not. That means 65,000 people were ready to explore India. Since auctions, nobody is ready to explore India.
A good point. Amit, but just to give a clarification on this specific question, see, G1 exploration is to be G1 level detailing is to be done on a resource which is already G2. That is what is given. So there is no question of discoveries here. It has already been discovered. So there is already a delinking between auction and exploration. Let us accept that. I mean, that is what the government has already said. There's a delinking between exploration and auction. Once it is explored by government entity using government funding, etc., only then it will be auctioned, and thereafter G1 will happen. From G3 or G2, which is already there, G1 will happen. So there is no new discoveries here. All what you're doing is getting your confidence level better. I mean, there is nobody who can vouch for that better than Abani, who is a master in resource. Absolutely.
We have one more question from
Monica, I think what between Amit and Biplob, what they talked about. You see how much kind of a difference in the terminology that we use, the concept that is in use in India and anyone else outside India. How do you expect actually anyone else to come to India, go through the pain of translating the system that in India, and then think about investing? I mean, who else can be actually better witness of that than Charles? And there are many others I know that also have gone through this pain.
We have a very simple question, maybe simple for you. So Mr. Prasantha Ata Guppam is asking, why exploration and mining companies export opportunities outside India like Africa, but not in India?
That's what we have been talking about. Very high. Yeah,
Charles, please answer this.
Can you repeat the question, because it's quite hard hearing.
Okay. Why exploration and mining companies explore opportunities outside India like in Africa but not in India?
Well, let me tell you, I worked in southern Angola in the middle of a civil war, and it was far easier than working in India. So, the conditions for working outside of India are 100 times better. And until India makes itself, reasonably attractive, no one in there, I mean, only an idiot like me would invest money into India. I mean, I've really been, my shareholders have followed me into India and I've lost their money for them. And India's done enormous damage to Australia because my investors were Australians, along with 22,000 Indian shareholders in Deccan gold mines, and we have been absolutely abused. As an investor, we were abused. We were invited here in '94 to invest our money. We were promised a single window clearance, and they made 140 windows. They've just taken advantage of us and basically raped the investors. And I see why we go on allowing them to do it. Something is terribly wrong in India. So in answer to that, I'm here because I want to see India succeed. I want to be part of the success of India. Otherwise, I'd have gone long ago. And everyone else saw the writing on the wall and went. But, you know, I still believe this could change and will change because I think there's too many intelligent people in the government. They will change it. And they're going to listen to people like you guys talking now. And they're going to say, hey, these guys know what they're talking about.
Aruna madam, you're there?
I think Monica, Aruna madam would be a good one.
Ma'am,
I
you're
think
there?
Aruna madam. No,
she's logged out. She's logged out.
Okay.
She sent a message.
So anyone else would like to?
Another
Can I
very short answer to that is that, like I said, 8 pillars of the mine, seven are good, 1 is totally missing. So a mine cannot be built. The jurisdiction is very bad. Jurisdiction does not allow anything to happen in that sector in India. So and fortunately, that's the easiest thing to change. Technical discoveries are extremely difficult. Jurisdiction is very easy to change. So we are lacking in the easiest thing. So once the easy thing is done, everything else we are very willing to do the tough things. We have done it. I have made discoveries. I have made world-class tier 1 discoveries overseas. I know I can do it in India, but I don't have the opportunity right now. I don't have the permissions to do that.
Don't know actually, you know, if jurisdiction change is easy in a country like India, which is probably one of the most complex countries in terms of everything that we talk about in the world. But I'll try to address this participants' question. Just taking an example of, I had the opportunity of talking to very high level, I would say, technical bureaucrats, heads of agencies in India, and the similar at the same capacity in 2 other countries, one in Africa and another one actually a regional one in Canada. If I look at them, I said, look, here are the differences. Our Indian friends say, this is actually, you know, to me personally, we really need money. Government has money. I was like, what? Government money is public money. We need investment to get our mineral resources developed actually in our country. Look at Canada and look at other countries. And to directly address to this listener's question, this approach, where I'm an advisor actually, these agencies leads, they're going to the investors, flying to other sides of the world, asking them, we need your money. We will do everything possible to get your land. Tell us what you want to do, what you want to do. That is like 2 different directions that our friends in India, the way that, I don't know how they're talking to investors, but their perspective is other countries' perspective. If I have $1, why should I go? Should I invest in India because I come from India, or should I go to Africa where I have at least that my $1 will become $1.1 one day? That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Abani, we have Mr. Sushil Kumar. Sushil Kumarji, we can't hear you. There's a lot of noise coming out.
Yeah. Just hold on, Amit. Just hold on.
Sushil Kumarji, you have something to add? We have Mr. Sushil Kumar from Telangana government.
Yeah, I hope I know 50% or 60% of the viewers.
Mr. Sushil. How are you, Sushil?
Yeah, fine. Hi. So actually, I was listening to all of you since 3 o'clock and onwards.
Gosh, you have
I
a lot
think
of
you have
patience.
got all the practical knowledge. With all the practical knowledge, you gave your points. I think from the government side, definitely I would like to have some of the points shared with you, because I have been recommending to the government with reference to the amendments that are to be made, keeping in view the recent Honorable Prime Minister's directions to MOM and also MOC, Ministry of Mines and Ministry of Coal. So in that thing, even the exploration part was discussed by me at length. I think that's the basic activity which really does for both quality assessment and also quantity assessment. And when you really go into the mineral-rich countries, they spend really a lot of money, billions of dollars, for really proving their and unearthing their mineral potential in their respective countries. Whereas our country was still recently, even today, is depending on GSI, MECL and the DMGs of the respective states. And actually we had good policy in 1993 as Charles was telling. So that really paved way to obtain, for FDS, during which time the MNCs really came into India and really explored the things. And as rightly pointed out by some of the speakers, it's not just the overnight, exploration done and then mining activities started. So, but keeping in view of 2008, NMP 2008, the things could have been taken a good shape. But however, in 2015, one act came for auctions, which I am also opposing since my, addressing to the Ministry of Mines in all my recommendations there. And now in that, they were telling to have certain CPSUs and state PSUs also to conduct exploration, that is central PSUs and also state PSUs, which is the extension of again GSI, MECL and DMG, and it will go in a snail's pace, not much of activity will be there. And they also had one more activity of selecting certain private entrepreneurs to have consortium also to fund and dump funds into exploration activity, but nothing has been given to them. And NMET, which is really formed for this purpose, is really taxing the entrepreneurs. Actually, NMET should not be there, because the government itself should allocate separate funds from the center itself in order to have the exploration done by GSI, MECL or any other private agencies, the national and also multinationals. I think these formats have to be really changed. And I think at the central level, with the industries representatives and also the central government officers, the state DMGs, some of the state DMGs can form a team at central level and go about the mineral-rich countries and take their policies for both exploration and also exploitation. I think we had in 2009 when Mr. Vijay Kumar was there, an MOU with Canada. I think the PDAC thing which goes on every year, we had real good MOU. That I think it is not surfaced out. If that is done, I think definitely we can adopt the policy of Canada itself for exploration. As Mr. Amit was also pointing out, that small companies would definitely make good exploration, about 70% of the world's exploration. In India, I think as of today, we really explored only 10%, whereas 90% is more to explore, for which really we need the technology, the change of views from the mineral-rich countries, the funding from MNCs and also both the Indian government,
Right.
in order to invite the MNCs for exploration. I think framework also should be there for having seamless thing, so that seamless RP, PL and ML, because we have NERP now. NERP does not have any sort of incentives to the private entrepreneurs. I think that has to be really looked into by the government, which I also gave. And I think we'll have to really, if at all auction is there, auction should not be the only process of grant. It should be one of the means, because I have given to Government of India about 7 alternatives to be granted by the government of India or into make it as a legal framework. One is auction process may be adopted for the areas where mineral deposit is evaluated as per UNFC CRISCO norms. As the mineral deposit extend to government patta forest schedule areas, mineral concessions may be granted by defining the mode of grant in the respective areas. Because we'll have to have, once the bidding is done, if at all auction is done, I think the entrepreneur, the bidder is left over for his own fate for obtaining the clearances, either forest clearance or land acquisition or EC clearances. I think that should be, prior clearances should be there for conducting of auction, including the evaluation to the last ton of the mineral. Auction is one of the mode of our allotment specified to be restricted beyond 25 hectares and not less than 25 hectares. I think reservations which are done for PSUs, state PSUs or central PSUs can be extended for the private entrepreneurs also, because if they come up with a mineral based industry, I think an area can be reserved in favor of them to have that. We can have Swiss challenge also. Online application process can be there. And in the schedule areas, it should be only the as per the PISA Act and rules. And coming back to our exploration itself, I think we really, Government of India to really entice the private sector in this cost-intensive activity, and also to invite FDAs and MNCs for better standards, exploring different minerals available in India. I think we'll have to really work together, both private sector and the government, and then go ahead for the exploration and exploitation of the mineral potential in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushil sir. Thank you so much for your views.
Thank you.
And now we are concluding the session because we have already extended the time. And I would like to request Pankaj Satija sir to present his concluding remarks on mineral exploration in India.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. Almost all the speakers were unanimous in thinking there needs a policy change in India to incentivize and to promote exploration. We also discussed how we can include the private sector in exploration, because it is not only the government responsibility, and government money should not be spent on exploration, and there should be a risk and reward. There are also thoughts on this exploration should be taken as a startup, and the regulation which is applicable to the mine should not be so stringently applicable to the exploration role. And there is also discussion and almost an agreement that exploration windfall should not be taken as a windfall profit. There are many failures which go behind one successful venture. So in all ways, the exploration should be promoted. There are various questions from the participants, and the questions which also ignited the thought that what the panelists are thinking, the participants are also thinking in the similar line. The pain area of auction and the pain area of free flowing of exploration from RP to PL to ML. The security of Princess Nair, which are also part of the committee. And there are also discussion on how we can go for the global reporting standards, which will also invite investment from the overseas or the FDI in India. I was also very encouraged and inspired by Mr. Charles' faith in Indian system and the concept and the question of going to Africa and investing in India. So there are many issues, many thoughts. We are all unanimous, including participants. And I'm sure the note after these deliberations will be sent to Government of India. And hopefully, as Government of India is thinking of certain changes, the immediate need of NERP deletion, and again bringing back the RP part and to PL and to ML as a smooth process and encouraging exploration in India. So thank you very much, all the participants. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you so much, Pankaj Satija sir, for giving concluding remarks. I would like to thank to all our fellow panelists for bringing up these issues. This session is being recorded, which we are going to upload it on our YouTube channel. And after this, we will also be making a report, which we will share it with you and with all the concerned departments. So with this, I'd like to thank Dr. Aruna Sharma for taking our time, Mr. Charles for trying so hard and finally made it for the session, Mr. Amit Tripathi, Mr. Biplob Chatterjee,